Kale is dead. The news echoes through the empty halls of my heart, leaving a silence more deafening than any scream. My feet are bare, cut and bruised, but I can't feel the pain, not when the only string of hope I had left has been severed. I mutter his name like a prayer that was never answered. Kale, my favorite, my beloved, my only reason for surviving in this lonely world. My strength fails me. The world tilts as my knees hit the cold, hard ground. I collapse, the weight of the truth crushing the breath from my lungs. No, it wasn't just a simple death. A sudden realization flickers behind my tears, sharp and jagged. Kale didn't just pass away. They killed him. The people he protected, the ones he sacrificed everything for, they are the ones who truly ended his life. I lie there on the floor, shivering from the coldness of this cruel reality. Anger begins to boil beneath my grief. If there is a God in this heartless world, hear me now. If Kale really had to be forsaken like this, if this was the reason I was brought into this world, then I will give up my own life. Just please make my beloved come back to life. My name is Hestia, but this wasn't always my life. I was just an ordinary woman who fell asleep reading my favorite novel. When I opened my eyes, I had become an extra in that very story. Someone so irrelevant she didn't even have a single line of dialogue. Perhaps because she was so unimportant, the author didn't bother giving her a backstory. I woke up as a woman with no family, no connections, yet somehow I was absolutely loaded. Gold, jewels, an endless fortune for no apparent reason. It was baffling. I mean, normally when you transmigrate, you're there to save a life or change the plot, right? But me, I was just a completely irrelevant extra. So I decided to do the only thing that made sense. I used that massive, unexplained fortune to live out every fan's ultimate dream. I spent money like it was water, buying my way into high society just to get a glimpse of the characters I adored. The barkeeps thought I was insane, but I didn't care. I needed an identity, a title, a seat at the table. I became a noble overnight, fueled by nothing but gold and obsession. It was the only way I could ever hope to cross paths with the stars of this world. And then I saw her, Diana, the female lead with hair like pearls and eyes that held the mystery of the ocean. She was breathtaking. Even her simple breaths felt like flecks of gold floating in the air. I was mesmerized. Next to her was Helios, the crown prince, the perfect combination of black hair and golden eyes. He was the author's top character, the ultimate male lead designed to make every reader's heart skip a beat. Seeing them in person was a religious experience. I thanked whatever God brought me here just for this view. But my eyes always wandered to the man standing just a few steps behind them, the one with the ice-cold personality and the burden of making the cruel decisions no one else would touch. He was the sweetest man to the female lead, even though he knew he would never be her first choice. Kalis, the sub-male lead, an icon of unrequited love, destined to be the most unfortunate soul in the universe. To me, he was the most beautiful, perfect soulmate in the entire universe, my absolute favorite. I spent boatloads of money just to be in the same room as him, watching him from the corners of the ballrooms. He was a flawless work of art. Just his presence turned the entire environment into a museum. I was more than satisfied just to see him in person, even if I was too nervous to ever actually approach him. I was just a successful, crazy fangirl, and I was perfectly happy with that. I watched the world flow according to the original plot. Diana, the saintess, used her healing powers to bring hope to the empire. And of course, both the prince and his best friend, Kyle, fell hopelessly in love with her. Helios offered her his hand and his kingdom. Kael offered her his silent, unwavering support. They made a perfect work of art just by standing together. But every story needs a villain. Enter Duchess Ratona, the daughter of the most powerful noble in the empire. She plotted to become empress, and to her, a commoner like Diana receiving the prince's love was an unforgivable insult. Ratona was ruthless, her family so powerful even the emperor feared them. The conflict reached a breaking point. Helios was being forced to marry Ratona while the love of his life stood right next to him. Kael couldn't stand to see them suffer. He decided to bear the cross for his beloved woman and his best friend. He used the corruption and sins of Ratona's family against them. He ended the threat permanently by poisoning their tea, forcing them to pay for their crimes with their lives. He did it for her. He did it so Diana could be happy, so Helios could be free. In my wishful thinking, I imagined Diana would understand. I thought she would see the sacrifice he made. Instead, she screamed at him. She called him cruel and manipulative, unable to reconcile his actions with her saintly ideals. She told him she didn't even want to look at his face. With those words, she completely turned her back on him. The rift between them was final. Kael was left in the darkness he had entered just to keep her in the light. According to the original plot, Helios and Diana got married with everyone's blessing. It was the perfect ending. I watched it all from the crowd. The novel had ended normally, and I hadn't changed a single thing. I stood there as an extra, wondering if it was finally time for me to return to my own world. They looked so happy. The prince and his saint finally together, while the rest of the world celebrated. But I couldn't stop thinking about Kael. I sincerely wished for his happiness, even after the story was over. I hoped he would get over his broken heart. I hoped he would live out his own life, away from the shadows of those two. I really wanted to see his face one last time before I left this world behind. I assumed he would keep on living here, finding some peace eventually. That was my hope. But when I finally saw him again, a year after the happily ever after, the man I adored was unrecognizable. The light had completely left his eyes. My beloved, the man who had given everything for a woman who despised him, he wasn't moving forward. He wasn't healing. He was standing right on death's doorstep, and I was the only one there to see him fall. The wedding bells rang, the curtains closed, and the happily ever after was sealed with a kiss for the main leads. The story was over, and the world was supposed to reset. I watched it all as a spectator, a guest in a story that wasn't mine, finally ready to leave this world behind and return to my own reality. I expected to wake up in my own bed, back to the mundane life of a commoner, far away from these paper-thin aristocrats and their drama. Just one more sleep, I told myself, one more dream, and I'd be home with my family, leaving this fictional realm to its perfect ending. But the morning sun didn't bring my bedroom ceiling. It brought the same silk sheets and a crushing realization that I was still here. I tried again and again. Desperation turned into a frantic prayer that went completely unanswered by whatever forces brought me here. One day bled into the next, the silence of the room becoming my only companion as I waited for a departure that wouldn't come. Spring turned to summer, then autumn. The seasons mocked me with their change while I remained frozen in a plot that had already ended. The colors of the world began to fade in my eyes, but the reality of my situation remained stubbornly sharp. A week, then 10 days, then a month. The passage of time became a blur of grief and confusion as I realized I was truly stuck. I was still here, an extra in a world that had no more lines for me to speak. The weight of it finally broke me. I wasn't just a guest anymore. I was a prisoner of a story that had no more pages for me to occupy. A whole year passed. I was the extra character left behind after the leads had their fill of joy and moved on. Why was I left here? The story was over. The heroes were happy. So why was I still breathing this fictional air, doomed to fade away? My wealth and status as Hestia evaporated. I was forced into a life of solitude, hiding away in a small mountain cottage just to survive. I looked at my hands and wondered if I even existed. Is this what happens to the characters the author simply forgets to write about? But then, news reached my doorstep that was worse than any poverty I could endure. It was a headline that shattered what was left of my heart. Kalis, my beloved, pitiful sub-male lead, the man who gave everything to the heroine, was left with nothing but a rope and a broken spirit. While the rest of the world celebrated its peace, he was drowning in the aftermath of a love that had discarded him without a second thought. I had prayed for his happiness more than my own, but the gods of this world are cruel to those who aren't the main protagonists. He lost his will to live. Abandoned by his best friend and the woman he adored, he became a ghost haunting his own mansion. The servants tried to stop him, but how do you save a man who has already died inside several times over? Every time I closed my eyes, I hoped for a different ending. Not for my own sake, but for his. I couldn't bear his suffering. I walked through the woods, my own heart heavy with the same darkness that I knew was consuming him every single day. I screamed at the sky, demanding to know why we were being tortured like this when the story was supposed to be finished. If there was no way back and no way forward, then what was the point of any of this pain? I was ready to let go, to just disappear into the forest and let the world forget me entirely. But then I heard a sound, a footstep on the dry leaves that felt like a sudden heartbeat in the silence. I looked up, tears blurring my vision, and saw a figure that shouldn't have been there. It was him, Kalis, standing there like a vision from a dream I didn't deserve to have. I thought my mind had finally snapped. There was no other explanation for seeing him here, so far from his home. He turned to leave, and I felt a surge of panic. I couldn't let him vanish into the trees again. I reached out, my voice a desperate plea, begging him to stay for just one moment. He looked at me with eyes so hollow, they mirrored the void in my own soul. He was a shell of the man he used to be. Suddenly, voices echoed through the trees. His people were searching for him, calling out his name with worry. He didn't want to be found. He didn't want to be dragged back to a life that offered him nothing but grief. Before I could process it, he pulled me into the shadows, his hand covering my mouth to keep us both hidden. The heat of his breath, the weight of his arm, he was real. My beloved was really here, holding me in the quiet of the forest. I led him back to my small, shabby cottage. It was a far cry from the palaces he was used to, but it was a sanctuary. I felt a sudden, sharp embarrassment. I hadn't cleaned, and I never expected the man of my dreams to walk through my door. He sat in my chair, looking like a fallen god, exhausted and completely broken by the world's expectations. I stood before him, trembling, still unable to fully believe this wasn't another cruel trick of my imagination. He didn't speak at first, just sat there in a heavy, suffocating silence that spoke volumes about his pain. "You said you wanted to disappear," he murmured. His words cut right through me, reaching the part of me that had given up. He saw right through my facade. He knew that I, too, was a soul with a story that could never be told to anyone else. I tried to hold back the tears, but his presence was a catalyst for every bit of pain I'd bottled up for a year. I told him everything, The loneliness, the loss, the feeling of being a ghost in a foreign land with no way home. He listened with a gaze that was both cold and intensely empathetic, as if he recognized every wound I described. We were two sides of the same coin, both abandoned by the heroes of this story once we were no longer useful. He told me I was stronger than him because I still wanted to live, despite having absolutely nothing left. But he didn't understand. I only wanted to live because he was still in this world. He was my only anchor. I looked at him, so thin, so pale. He was wasting away, a victim of a narrative that had no more use for his kindness. He was the sub-male lead, the one meant to suffer so the main characters could shine. It was a role I refused to let him keep. I watched him, my heart aching with a new purpose. I wasn't just a leftover character anymore. I had a reason to stay. I wanted to see him smile again. I wanted to give him a reason to wake up tomorrow and every day after. Wait here, I told him. I'll be right back. I had to do something, anything, to keep him here with me. I left him in the cottage, a flicker of hope finally igniting in my chest after a long year of darkness. I ran to the village, buying food and supplies with what little I had. I would cook for him, care for him, and show him he was precious. I would tell him that even if the world didn't need him, I did. He wasn't alone anymore. But the moment I pushed the door open, the world turned a terrifying shade of red. Kalis? No, please, not again. The silence in the room was deafening. The groceries hit the floor as I saw him lying there, the cold steel of a blade reflecting the light of a life slipping away. I called his name, but the silence that followed was the most terrifying thing I'd ever heard. Was I too late to save him? A single name escapes my lips, trembling and hollow. Kale. No, this can't be real. The air in the cabin is suddenly too heavy to breathe, thick with the scent of iron and a crushing finality. Seeing him like this is a nightmare that refuses to end, even as I reach out to touch the cold reality of his skin. Tears are a poor substitute for the words I never got to say, or for the comfort I failed to provide when he needed it most. Was this the reason I was brought to this world, to watch the most beautiful soul I've ever known flicker out in the dark? A small signed note sits on the table, a final act of kindness from a man who had nothing left for himself. The headlines scream of his death for a fleeting moment, but the world is a cruel place that moves on far too quickly. His sacrifice is buried beneath the latest scandals of the crown prince and his new wife. It's sickening. Their love didn't even last 2 years before it started to rot, yet Kale is the one who paid the ultimate price. My own life became a blur of emptiness and rage, a hollow shell of existence without a single spark of hope. I wandered the temple like a ghost, my mind unraveling alongside my health, bumping into strangers, hearing their petty complaints. It all felt so insignificant compared to the void in my chest. They whisper behind my back, calling me mindless, pitying a woman they don't even know. They still talk about the Saintess Diana, wondering why she doesn't visit the commoners anymore now that she's a princess. Diana, Helios, the names taste like poison on my tongue. While they played at their happily ever after, Kale was left to drown in his own despair. The weight of it all finally becomes too much to bear, and the world begins to tilt. The reality is a jagged blade in my heart. Kalis is dead. He doesn't exist in this world anymore. No, that's not right. He didn't just die. He was pushed to the edge by the people he trusted most. My hands grip the cold stone floor as the truth boils over. Kale didn't just end his life. They killed him. They tormented him until he saw no other way out. They are the ones with blood on their hands. If there is a God listening to this broken prayer, if there is any justice left in this universe, I would give up everything, my life, my soul, my very existence. Just bring him back to me. A blinding light erupts from the darkness, a silent scream echoed by the heavens. The images of his end flash before my eyes, a cycle of pain that I refuse to accept as the final word. The blood, the silver hair, the cold steel. Please, let me change this. Every memory of him is a treasure I would die to protect. Let me save him. Let me be the one who stays when everyone else walks away. I won't let it end like this. Not again. My eyes snap open, the fire of 1,000 suns burning in my gaze. The silence is different now. It's not the silence of the grave, but the quiet of a room I haven't seen in years. The bed is plush, the ceiling familiar. This is Hestia's room. From before everything fell apart. Did a priest bring me here? No, that's impossible. No one at the temple even knew who I was. I look at my hands, feeling a vitality that had long since withered away. I'm upright, I'm moving, and the crushing headache that defined my days is gone. It feels as though my body has reverted to a time before the grief consumed me. Confusion wars with a desperate rising hope. Could it really be happening? I flex my fingers, testing the reality of this moment. I feel healthy. The air is light, the world is vibrant, and I am alive in a way I haven't been for a lifetime. I rush to the window and see the village decorated with banners. I recognize this sight. The cheers of the crowd, the celebration in the streets, it's the wedding parade. I'm back at the very end of the novel, the night Diana and Helios were wed. The realization hits me like a physical blow. If this is that night, then there's still time. Today is the wedding, and the first day Cowell tries to end his life. I can't waste a single second. I have to get to him. The festive atmosphere outside is a mockery of the tragedy about to unfold. I won't let history repeat itself, not while I still have breath in my body. I remember the faces of those who celebrated while he suffered. Diana, smiling and oblivious. She never even thanked him for everything he sacrificed. She just took and took until there was nothing left. I won't let his devotion be wasted on someone who doesn't deserve it. Today, the story changes. Today, I become the variable they never saw coming. Kyle gave her his everything, and she threw it away like it was nothing. I'll make her realize just how wrong she was. I'll make them all see. I grab the first carriage I can find, my voice sharp with a command that leaves no room for argument. Money is no object. Time is the only currency that matters now. The carriage rattles through the streets as I pray that I'm not too late. I'm not here to reunite him with Diana. That bridge is burned and buried. I'm here for him, only for him. The gates of the Marquis's estate loom ahead, a fortress of solitude and hidden pain. I don't care about decorum or the guards. I'm a woman on a mission. Nothing can stop a fan who has seen her beloved's end and been given the chance to rewrite it. I'll run until my lungs burn, as long as it brings me to his side. The guards shout, but they are just shadows in my path. My eyes are fixed on the balcony, on the room where I know he's waiting for the end. A quick distraction is all I need to slip past them. I'm a blur of red silk and desperation, charging through the halls of a house that feels like a tomb. The servants gasp, but I don't stop. I know exactly where he is. Second floor. The door at the end of the hall. That's where his heart is breaking. I throw the doors open with a force that echoes through the silent mansion. There he is, standing by the window, the moonlight catching the silver of his hair and the glint of a dagger. He looks at me with eyes full of a beautiful, terrifying emptiness. "Who are you?" he asks. I can't help the sob that catches in my throat. He's alive. He's really alive. I have to act now. I have to give him a reason to put that blade down. I lunge forward, my heart hammering against my ribs, fueled by a love that has survived death itself. I tackle him, the dagger clattering to the floor as we crash into the boards together. He's shocked, gasping for air, but all I can feel is the warmth of his body and the beat of his heart. I look him in the eye and make the only vow that matters. My name is Hestia, and I've come to be your Marchioness. I will do whatever it takes to save you. Euros has been the pillar of this estate since the previous Marquis' time, a man of unwavering loyalty and quiet observation. He watched Kalis grow from a boy into a man, serving as a surrogate father until his master took his rightful place at the head of the house. But ever since those he trusted most turned their backs on him, the Marquis has become a ghost in his own home, leaving his duties and his life in shambles. Euros expected a slow recovery, perhaps a long period of mourning. He never expected a strange woman to crash through the doors and tackle his master to the floor. His mind is reeling. Between an unkept bedroom, a suicidal master, and this sudden violent intervention, the butler's world has been turned upside down. And then, the impossible happened. Right there, on the floor of the room he just tried to end his life in, she proposed. Hestia knows how insane she looks. Her heart is hammering against her ribs, the adrenaline of the rescue still coursing through her veins. She really did it. She threw away every ounce of common sense and decorum for the sake of a man who doesn't even know her name. Her conscience screams at her. Who cares about the original plot anymore? Who cares about being a background character when the hero is bleeding out? She has to change the ending. She can't let him die like a forgotten footnote in a story that favored everyone but him. It's a desperate gamble, a chaotic leap of faith into a role she was never meant to play. Kalis remains silent, his silver hair veiling his face as he processes the absurdity of her words. Hestia waits for the rejection, for the anger, or for Euros to finally drag her out by her hair. She braces herself for the fallout, her mind already spinning with backup plans that all feel equally impossible. She stammers, trying to find a way to walk back the sheer intensity of her demand, her hands waving dismissively as she feels the weight of his gaze. Then, a sound breaks the tension, a laugh. It isn't a sound of joy, but a hollow, jagged thing that cuts through the room. Kalis looks up, his eyes dark and empty. He sees himself as a man with no value, a discarded piece on a board that's already been cleared. Hestia flinches. She wanted to save him, not mock him, but his self-loathing is so deep that he interprets her proposal as a joke at his expense. She tries to protest, to tell him she's serious, but the words die in her throat when he speaks. He gives her a look of utter indifference. "Do as you wish," he says. The 4 words hit her like a physical blow. The shock is paralyzing. He didn't just agree, he surrendered. He's so far gone that he doesn't even care who marries him anymore. Kalis simply turns away, leaving the logistics to his butler as if he's ordering a new piece of furniture instead of taking a wife. Euros stands frozen, clutching the dagger he managed to snatch away, staring at the closed doors in disbelief. Hestia is left alone with the butler, her mind screaming. She got what she wanted, but the cost was seeing the true depth of Kalis's despair. She takes a breath and tries to regain her composure. She isn't just a fan anymore. She's a noblewoman with a title to uphold. Euros invites her to sit, his professional mask sliding back into place, though his eyes remain sharp and questioning. He begins the interrogation with a polite veneer, asking for her forgiveness if his upcoming questions seem rude. He wastes no time listing her offenses: trespassing, assaulting the staff, and physically tackling the Marquis. Hestia winces as he recounts the body slam. It sounds much worse when a professional butler describes it. The weight of her actions starts to sink in. She really did make a mess of things, even if her intentions were pure. She tries to look small, hoping he won't call the authorities before she can explain herself. But then, Euros's tone shifts. He admits that if it hadn't been for her, the Marquis wouldn't be alive at all. He bows deeply, a gesture of profound gratitude from a man who thought he was about to bury his master. Hestia feels a pang of guilt. She knows Euros was the only one who truly tried to protect Kalis in the original story. But the butler is no fool. He notes that she seemed to know exactly what Kalis was about to do before she even entered the room. He needs to know how. How could a stranger see through the walls of a locked estate and anticipate a suicide attempt? Hestia panics. She can't exactly tell him she read it all in a web novel and reincarnated into this world. Her internal monologue is a mess of frantic excuses, each one sounding more insane than the last. She looks at Euros, searching for a way to bridge the gap between truth and fiction. She decides to lean into the logic of this world. In a fantasy novel, extraordinary powers are the only currency that matters. She takes a breath and hardens her gaze. She has to convince him she's an asset, not an intruder. Euros waits, his skepticism practically radiating off him. He's seen many things, but he doesn't believe in coincidences. "I have the ability to see the future," she declares, putting every ounce of conviction into her voice. It's a bold claim, one that marks her transition from a mere extra to a central player in this tragedy. She watches for his reaction, her hands trembling slightly in her lap as she waits for the verdict. Euros doesn't buy it. His face darkens, clearly suspecting she's just another charlatan trying to take advantage of a broken man. She needs a specific detail, something only he and Kalis could possibly know, something that proves her vision. "The pink diamond," she says. The words act like a physical barrier, stopping Euros in his tracks. She describes the jewel Kalis bought for the Saintist, the one he never got to give her because of the betrayal. She tells him exactly where it is, the third drawer of the desk in his office, a secret buried in mahogany and regret. Euros is speechless. His professional composure finally breaks, replaced by a look of genuine shock. He wonders how she could possibly know that. It was a private matter, handled in total secrecy. Hestia offers a small, knowing smile. The proof is undeniable. She has his attention now. She explains her mission. Kalis will continue to try and end his life, and she is the only one who can see the threats before they happen. She demands the authority to stay by his side. To save him, she needs the power that only a Marchioness holds. Euros listens, his expression softening as he realizes she isn't seeking wealth or status, but a way to keep his master alive. She promises she has no intention of being the true lady of the house. She will sign any contract, any agreement to prove her sincerity. She stands amidst the opulence of the estate, a woman who only wants to protect its dying heart. "I will not cause him any harm," she vows. Her words are simple, but they carry the weight of a lifetime of devotion. Euros considers her offer. He is a man of logic, but he is also a man of desperation. He has no other options. He admits he doesn't have the authority to finalize a marriage, but he's willing to let her stay the night. Hestia beams with relief. It's the first step, a tiny foothold in a mountain of grief. Euros bows once more, signaling the end of their meeting and the beginning of a strange, tentative alliance. Left alone in the guest room, Hestia finally lets out the breath she's been holding. She made it through the first night. But as the house settles into a heavy silence, The man she's trying to save remains lost in the dark. Kalis stares out of his window, his reflection ghostly against the night sky, his mind still trapped in the past. He whispers a name into the cold air, Diana, the woman who broke him, the woman he still can't forget. Hestia watches from afar, her determination renewed. She will make him live again, even if she has to drag him back from the brink every single day. The story has changed. The background character is now the lead, and she isn't going anywhere. Kalis closes his eyes, oblivious to the war being fought for his soul, still drowning in the memories of a saintess. The night is long, and the path to healing is steep, but for the first time since the story ended, there is a flicker of hope in the dark. My inner voice is having a field day. I can hardly believe the words that actually came out of my mouth last night. Was I bold or just completely impulsive? My conscience is practically screaming at me for being so reckless. Marriage is a life-altering decision, and here I am, treating it like a casual suggestion. I really need to get a grip on reality. But then again, this world started as a novel to me. If I've already set the wheels in motion, there's no point in second-guessing now. My original plan was so much safer. I was going to be his assistant, or maybe a secretary, something discreet. Instead, I went for the throat and asked to be his wife. It's absolute madness, but I can't take it back. I realized the second I looked into his eyes that a simple working relationship wouldn't save him. Those tormented, empty eyes needed something more. I acted on instinct, pretending to see a future that only I know because I read the story. I'll play any part if it means saving him. If being a prophetess is what it takes to stay by his side and keep him alive, then that's who I'll become. But as I drift through this strange dreamscape, a voice echoes back to me, following my decision. They say they are always with me, a collective we that feels both comforting and deeply mysterious. Who exactly are they? The creators of this world, or something else entirely? The question lingers as the light of the morning finally pulls me back to the waking world. I wake up in a room far more luxurious than any I've ever known, the weight of yesterday's events settling back onto my shoulders. A long, deep stretch helps shake off the lingering fog of that bizarre dream. It felt so real, yet so distant. I suppose that's just the nature of my life now, living a dream that's become a reality. Euros, the Marquis' loyal butler, greets me with a professional yet curious gaze. He's checking to see if I've regained my senses. I assure him I slept well, better than I have in a long time, despite the weight of the proposal hanging over us. He notes my composure. He thinks I'm relaxed because I can see the future, but the truth is, I'm just desperately trying to hold it together. My first thought is for the Marquis. How is he doing this morning? Is he any closer to the edge? Euros mentions that Kalis seems more stable today, which is a massive relief. But then he tests me. He asks why my future sight didn't tell me that. I have to scramble, explaining that I only see the major turning points, not the daily mundane details. He's joking, but my heart nearly stops. I can't afford to let my guard down around a man as sharp as him. Still, he seems to be warming up to me. He acknowledges that, regardless of how I did it, I saved his master's life. He calls me Lady Hestia now. The transition from stranger to potential mistress of the house is happening faster than I expected. He's even prepared the legal documents already. The man worked through the night because of my impulsive demand. I feel a pang of modern guilt. I really hate making people work overtime on my account. He stops to give me a final piece of advice. Kalis might be stable, but he's still a shadow of himself. He worries if a proper conversation is even possible. I know Kalis is hurting, but I'm prepared for his silence. I offer a small suggestion. Fruit punch spiked with brandy. It's a specific preference of his that only a true fan or a prophetess would know. Euros is visibly shaken by my knowledge. Step by step, I'm proving that I belong here, that I know his master better than anyone. Now comes the hard part. I have to face the man I vowed to save, even if he doesn't want to be saved. The doors open, and the atmosphere in the room is heavy with a silence that feels like it could suffocate you. There he is, Kalis. He looks so fragile, like a beautiful statue that's been cracked and left to weather in the dark. My heart sinks. No matter how many times I see him like this, the pain of his despair hits me like a physical blow. The memory of that night, of finding him on the floor, the cold reality of his attempt to leave this world, flashes before my eyes. I bite my lip, fighting back the urge to cry. I can't be weak now. He needs someone strong. I didn't come this far to let him slip away. I force a bright, cheerful greeting into the room, determined to break through his gloom. He just sighs, a sound so weary it breaks my heart all over again. Euros tries to maintain decorum, but the tension is palpable. I'm fuming internally. How can he just give up like this? But I have to be patient. I have to be his anchor. Euros presents the documents. 2 copies of a contract that will bind our lives together in a way neither of us ever imagined. I scan the pages. It details everything. My authority as the Marchioness, the power I'll hold over the estate. It's a position of incredible influence. I could wield the same power as Kalis himself, as long as I act in the interest of the house. Euros is thorough. He's included clauses for every eventuality, proving just how capable and protective he is of his master. But there's one section I won't accept. I don't want his money. I'm not here to profit from his tragedy. I tell them plainly, strike the financial terms. I am not a con artist, and I won't have anyone thinking I'm here for his gold. Euros is stunned, but Kalis, he doesn't even hesitate. He reaches for the pen, his movements robotic and detached. He's signing it. He's actually signing a marriage contract without even bothering to read the changes. We're both in shock. It's a contract that hasn't even been finalized, yet he's putting his name to it as if it means nothing. He just wants us to leave. He doesn't care about his fortune, his power, or his future. He just wants the silence back. I look at him, sitting there in his despair, and I feel a surge of fierce protectiveness. It's those eyes that have seen too much betrayal and not enough love. I can't let him stay in this darkness. I will change this. I have to. I clutch the fabric of my dress, my hands trembling with a mix of anger and resolve. I won't let his signature be a death warrant. I promise him, right then and there, that he will not regret this. Even if he can't hear me, I'm making a vow to the universe. I offer a small, determined smile. This is the beginning of his salvation, whether he knows it yet or not. I take my leave with a grace I didn't know I possessed, the weight of the signed contract heavy in my hand. I am his wife now, legally if not in spirit, and I have work to do. He tells me to get out, his voice a low rasp that speaks of a soul that's already departed. I walk out of that room with Euros, the heavy doors closing behind us like a seal on the first chapter of our new life. Euros looks exhausted, overwhelmed by his master's apathy. He says he needs to go to the temple to pray for guidance. I can't help but smirk. The temple? That's the last place that will help us now. I have a different plan. I'm going to retrieve everything that was stolen from Kalis, his pride, his joy, his life, and I'm going to start with the woman who broke him, the saintess who abandoned her most loyal friend for a crown. Diana. She thinks she's won her happily ever after, leaving a trail of destruction in her wake. She has no idea what's coming for her. I'm not a character in her story anymore. I'm the narrator of her downfall. The game has changed, Diana, and this time, I'm the one holding all the cards. He's right there, so close I can feel the air between us. I've spent a lifetime looking at him from a distance, but this is real. How can one man be this beautiful? It's a crime against nature that someone this perfect was ever left to suffer alone. My dream is finally becoming a reality, and my heart is racing so fast, I'm worried he might actually hear it. He wants to express his gratitude? I'm already living my best life just by looking at him. But if he's offering, I can feel the heat rising to my face. This is too much for a simple fan to handle. What exactly would he do to show he's grateful? My mind is wandering to places it definitely shouldn't go right now. No, I have to stop this. I need to focus. I'm not just here to admire him. I'm here to save him. I have to pull myself together. It's not the time to get distracted by my beloved's face. I have work to do. I clear my throat and make my request. I don't want jewels or titles. I want another tutor. Specifically, I want someone who knows the ins and outs of high society. I want Madame Harmonia. Kale looks at me, his expression unreadable. He's curious why I'd ask for her of all people. He hesitates, his hand clenching slightly. There's a weight to that name that he hasn't forgotten. He asks if it really has to be her. I don't flinch. I tell him I don't need anyone else. There is a very specific reason I'm targeting Harmonia. She was the noble closest to Diana, the saintess who broke Kale's heart. In the original story, Kale eliminated the nobles who stood in Diana's way. He did the dirty work so she could stay pure. The price of that purity was blood. A poisoned tea set, a shattered reputation, and 2 lives ended by Kale's own hand. After that, the rest of the nobility fell in line. They stopped opposing Diana, fearing they'd be next. That's how the story ended, but not everyone was happy. There are still nobles who resent the saintess's rise to power. It seems strange to want Diana's closest ally, doesn't it? But sometimes the best way to destroy a fortress is from the inside. Madame Harmonia. She was the one who taught Diana how to act like a noble when she was just a commoner. She was the one who gave Diana the confidence to pursue the crown prince, ignoring the social divide. If the temple is Diana's political shield, then Harmonia is her spiritual backbone. She is the key. A socialite of her stature won't ignore the shifting tides of the capital forever. She's a survivor. She knows how to pick the winning side, and right now, she thinks Diana is it. If I don't act now, Diana will consolidate her power with the nobility. I have to strike before that happens. Kale sighs, looking exhausted by my schemes. He doesn't understand what I'm doing, but he doesn't stop me. He tells me he has no idea what I'm thinking, but he'll let me proceed. Little does he know, this is all for him. He tells me to speak with the butler, Uros, to arrange the meeting. Then he turns away. I'm about to leave when he stops. He sounds different, softer, more vulnerable than I've ever heard him. He tells me that regardless of my plans, he is sincerely grateful for what I've done. He actually thanks me. I stand there, frozen. The man I've worshipped from behind a screen for years just thanked me in person? My brain has officially short-circuited. He thanked me. He really, truly thanked me. I'm rolling around on my bed later that night, absolutely losing it. He didn't just thank me, he addressed me directly. This is it. This is peak happiness. All the hard work, all the stress of being in this world, it was all worth it for that one moment. I'm going to work even harder now. For his sake, I'll take down anyone who dares to look down on him. The next morning, I waste no time. I ask Euros to send a letter to Madame Harmonia immediately. Euros suggests inviting her to the mansion, but I refuse. I'm going to her. I need to show her I'm humble. Just like Diana, I rose from a commoner to a noble. If I act arrogant, I'll only create an enemy. I need her to see me as an ally. I know everything about these characters, their likes, their dislikes, their weaknesses. There's no way I can lose this game. I dress myself carefully, choosing an outfit that says refined rather than opulent. First impressions are everything. I didn't expect her to agree to see me so soon. It's a sign that she's curious about the new Marchioness who's been causing a stir. Time to strike while the iron is hot. Let's see what the famous Salon Harmonia is really like. The place is blindingly sparkly. It's the epicenter of high society, and I'm walking right into the middle of it. I approach the staff and tell them I have an appointment. I can feel the eyes on me already. The moment I mention my name, the room goes quiet. The gossip starts before I've even taken 5 steps. Everyone is whispering. Did I say my title too loudly? Or have the rumors of what happened at the temple spread that fast? The pressure is suffocating. I feel like a specimen under a microscope, with every noblewoman in the room judging my every move. I just want to get out of this hallway. I'm not used to this kind of attention, and it's making me break a sweat. Then I hear it. Someone calling for the Marchioness. It's her. Madame Harmonia appears, looking every bit the elegant socialite she's supposed to be. She seems genuinely surprised I came myself. She leads me inside, past more whispering nobles. For once, someone is actually glad to see me instead of glaring. I can hear the hushed conversations behind us. My arrival is going to be the talk of the town for weeks. The interior of her private room is just as lavish as the rest of the salon. This is where the real power moves happen. We sit down, and she admits she never expected a Marchioness to visit her in person. Usually, she's the one being summoned. She's used to being at the beck and call of those with higher status. My decision to come here has already piqued her interest. I tell her I'm desperate. I need her help. I'm playing the role of the humble commoner turned noble to perfection. This was exactly how Diana won her over. Honesty and humility. If it worked for the Saintess, it'll work for me. I let the tears fall. I tell her I have no one else to turn to. I need her to believe I'm completely lost without her guidance. Harmonia is visibly moved. She stands up, her maternal instincts kicking in. She wants to protect the poor, overwhelmed Marchioness. She tells me I can tell her anything. She's hooked. The first part of my plan is working perfectly. I hide my face behind my hands, sobbing for effect. Underneath it all, I'm smiling. Diana, you have no idea what's coming for you. Diana was the world's darling, a saintess with holy powers that seemed to shine brighter than the sun. But holiness doesn't pay the bills, and the temple wasn't about to welcome a commoner without a significant price. That's where Kale came in. He offered up the crown jewel of his holdings, the fertile land of Ilion, all to secure her place and her name. He bought her a future, a crown, and a happily ever after that didn't include him. He gave her everything, and she gave him nothing in return. It's enough to make my blood boil. Watching Kale waste away while she smiles on her throne is a debt that needs settling. He gave up his soul for a woman who discarded him like yesterday's news. I won't let her get away with it, not for one more second. Every sacrifice Kale made for her is a weight I'm going to lift off his shoulders, starting today. If Diana wants to play the saint, she can do it without my husband's property. I'm taking back what's ours. The carriage pulls up to the temple, a symbol of the power they think they still hold over Kale's life. A lowly priest rushes out, frantic and confused by the unannounced arrival of the Marquis' crest. He's looking for the man he thinks he can still exploit, but he's in for a rude awakening when he sees who's inside. The man expects Kale to be the one stepping out, ready to hand over more of his life for a woman who doesn't care. Instead, he gets me, Hestina, the new Marchioness, and the woman who's about to change the rules of the game. He can barely process the words. To him, I'm just a ghost in a carriage, someone who shouldn't exist. He laughs it off, thinking it's some kind of joke. Everyone knows Kale is obsessed with Diana, or so they think. He tells me to at least tell a believable lie. He thinks he can dismiss me just because I didn't come with an invitation. He's about to learn how wrong he is. He's about to learn that rank isn't the only thing that commands respect in a place built on hidden greed. A little incentive goes a long way when dealing with the supposedly pious. I toss a bag of gold at his feet, watching his holy resolve crumble in an instant. The sound of coins hitting the floor is louder than any prayer. His eyes light up with a greed that no scripture could ever satisfy. It's pathetic, really. Money talks, even in the house of God. Suddenly, I'm the most important guest they've ever had, and he's more than happy to escort me. I'm finally brought before someone with actual authority, even if he's wearing a mask of polite indifference. He doesn't hide his suspicion. A marriage that happened only hours ago sounds like a desperate lie to a man who thinks he knows Kyle's heart. They're waiting for me to stumble, to admit I'm just a common girl playing dress-up in a noble's carriage. But I came prepared with more than just a title and a bag of gold. I slide the marriage contract across the table. It's official, sealed, and entirely legal. The ink is fresh, but the power it grants me is absolute. Kale is mine, and so is his estate. They scan the document, searching for any flaw, any reason to throw me out and keep their hold on the Marquis. They can check it 100 times, but the truth remains. I am the Marchioness now, whether they like it or not. The priest finally asks what brings me to the temple, still clinging to the hope that I've come to make another donation. He expects me to beg for a blessing or offer more of Kale's wealth to the temple's coffers in exchange for recognition. I didn't come here to give anything. I came to take back the land of Ilion that was previously offered by the Marquis. The color drains from his face the moment the words leave my mouth. He slams his hands on the table, claiming it's impossible. He tries to invoke divine rage, claiming that taking back an offering to God is asking for disaster. Are you serious? I just take a calm sip of my tea. His empty threats don't scare me. I've read this story too many times to be intimidated. Kale didn't give that land to God. He gave it to a saintess who is no longer at this temple. Therefore, the offer no longer stands. The land was taken by the temple because of their sheer greed. They only started treating Diana well because they feared Kale's influence. They've been profiting off Kale's heartbreak for years, and I'm the only one who knows the legal loopholes. They are all in the palm of my hand. The greed in this room is suffocating, but I can feel them starting to break under the pressure of the truth. He asks me to wait, realizing this is far above his authority. That's what you should have done in the first place. They're scrambling now. The sense of urgency is exactly what I wanted to see from these hypocrites. I was ready to blackmail them with the truth about Diana if I had to. I'm just glad things are moving smoothly. Still, I can't help but feel a tiny bit of regret that the world won't see Diana's cruelty today. I'm left alone to wait. Suddenly, the atmosphere shifts. A presence enters the room that makes my skin crawl. It seems I've kept you waiting for a long time. It's a jolt to the system. I didn't even hear him move. The head priest. He's not like the others. He carries an aura of genuine, terrifying power and calculated grace. He tries to play the part of the benevolent leader, hoping the children weren't rude to me. He forces me to sit back down. His presence is overwhelming. He emits a different aura up close, and it's genuinely startling. He brings the conversation back to the land of Ilion, his voice smooth and dangerous. I reiterate my request for repossession. His smile doesn't reach his eyes. He's a man who's used to being the one in control of every soul in this city. He delivers his refusal with a calm, chilling finality. They will not give the land back. He claims the Marquis knew the land would stay with the temple. He's trying to stare me down, to make me blink. I shouldn't be intimidated. If I show weakness now, they'll look down on me and Kyle forever. I'm not the woman they think I am. I'm the Marchioness now, and I won't let them win. He thinks he's won. He thanks me for my understanding with that fake, grandfatherly smile. I decide to hit him where it hurts. I mention the cold-heartedness of the saintess who is praised by the world. I paint the picture for him, a villainess who manipulated the Marquis's pure heart for a better chance at being accepted. I tell him it would be a beautiful headline for the newspapers tomorrow, "The Saintess and the Temple that profited from her lies." I give him a smile that's far from saintly. I have the facts, the motive, and the means to burn their reputations to the ground. The head priest is silent, his composure finally starting to crack. He realizes too late that he's not dealing with a fragile noblewoman, but a threat Hestia who has come to reclaim her own. The head priest sits before me, his expression a carefully crafted mask of holy indifference. He tries to laugh it off, claiming he has no idea what I'm talking about, but the sweat on his brow betrays his panic. It's almost pathetic. They hide behind the temple's name as if it's a shield for their greed, pretending they don't care about profit. He's still smiling, but I can see his knuckles turning white. He's disturbed by how much I know about their little arrangements. If he wants to play the saint, I'll play the sinner. I have no problem getting my hands dirty for what belongs to Kale. I lean in, the predator finally closing in on its prey. I'm going to wipe that smug smile right off his face. Imagine the scandal when the nobility finds out their beloved saintess is just a puppet for the temple's land-grabbing schemes. The panic is finally setting in. He knows I have him cornered, and the realization is crushing him. Diana, the so-called saintess, built her power on the adoration of the common people, but that love is a fragile thing. If the high nobility finds a reason to tear her down, they won't hesitate for a second. I can see the gears turning in his head as he tries to find a way out of this nightmare I've created. I'll send a formal appeal to the emperor. I'm sure he'd be fascinated to hear about the temple's hidden profits. He snaps, demanding evidence. He thinks he can still call my bluff if I can't prove the corruption. I give him a look that says, I know exactly where the bodies are buried. Are you really that certain there's no evidence? I ask, my voice dropping to a dangerous whisper. The silence in the room is suffocating. I can almost hear his heart racing against his ribs. They whisper among themselves, a group of desperate men realizing their secrets are no longer safe. They know that an investigation into this one plot of land will pull the thread on a dozen more scandals. I take a slow, deliberate sip of my tea, savoring the taste of their impending defeat. The truth is, I don't have a single piece of paper to prove a thing, but their reaction told me everything I needed to know. They've fallen for it, hook, line, and sinker. I offer them a way out, a quiet return of the land to the estate, and I'll keep their secrets. He looks at me like I'm a monster, but he has no choice. He has to take the deal. It's a victory won in the shadows, but it's the first real step toward restoring what Kale lost. Euros is waiting for me at the gate, his face etched with worry as the night air chills the courtyard. He asks if anything went wrong at the temple, clearly expecting me to return empty-handed. I pull the ownership document out like it's a trophy. The land of Ilion is ours again. He's speechless. He can't believe I actually managed to wrench it away from the temple's grasp. We celebrate in the quiet of the night, a small moment of triumph in a house that has forgotten how to cheer. Up there, in the high window, I see a silhouette. Kale is watching us from the darkness. I want him to know I'm doing this for him, that I won't stop until he has everything back. But the moment I look up, he turns away, retreating back into his self-imposed exile. Euros is practically glowing, urging me to go tell Kale the good news myself. I hesitate. He's still so broken, and I'm still just the woman who forced her way into his life. I look up at his room, my heart aching for the man who lost his reason to live before I even arrived. No, it's better if Euros tells him. I don't want to overwhelm him with my presence just yet. I'm content just knowing I've lightened his burden, even if he never thanks me for it. Euros is so touched by my consideration that he treats me like the true lady of the house. That night, I collapse onto my bed, the weight of the day finally catching up to me. The revenge has officially started, and I won't stop until everyone who hurt him pays the price. Tomorrow, I'll see the land for myself. This is just the beginning of our new story. I drift off to sleep, feeling a sense of purpose I haven't felt since I woke up in this world. But while I sleep, the ripples of my actions are already reaching the highest levels of power. Across the city, a man is reading a report that shouldn't even exist. Helios stares at the parchment, his anger simmering as he realizes the temple has been lying to him. He can't believe the temple would be so brazen, or that I would have the nerve to challenge them. He has no idea that the butterfly effect of my arrival is about to tear his world apart. The next morning, Cadiel is sitting in his study, holding the document I fought so hard to get. When I'm summoned to his room, my heart starts hammering against my ribs. Did I go too far? I apologize immediately, thinking he's angry that I acted without his permission. Why is he calling for me now? Yesterday, he could barely stand to look at me. I'm terrified he's going to throw me out for interfering with the Saintess's affairs. He speaks my name for the first time. Hestia. His voice is like a ghost of the man he used to be. He looks at me, really looks at me, and for a moment, the entire world seems to stop. It's the gaze of a man who's finally starting to wake up from a long, painful dream. He questions who I really am. An adopted daughter? A minor noble? He sees right through the cover story. I admit that I bought my status just to get close to him. I have nothing left to hide. He leans forward, his presence filling the room, demanding the truth I've been keeping. He asks the one question I wasn't prepared for. He wants to know my true motive. What is the real reason you wanted to marry me? The words hang in the air between us. I look at him, the man I've loved across worlds, and the truth is finally ready to be spoken. I look at him, sitting there with that familiar shadow over his eyes, and I realize I can't keep my feelings bottled up anymore. I don't just dislike the royal couple, I despise them for what they've done to you. My anger isn't a flicker, it's a goddamn inferno. I know I have to be careful. A clumsy lie won't work on a man like Kalis, but the truth is too heavy to share all at once. I want them to crawl to you. I want them to apologize for every ounce of pain they caused, and I'll do whatever it takes to ensure you never choose death again. They broke you, Marquis. They discarded your devotion like trash, and my only wish is to see them taste the bitter sting of regret. Silence stretches between us, heavy and thick. He doesn't move, doesn't even breathe, as if my words are a foreign language he's trying to translate. His gaze drops. That quiet, hollow expression hurts more than if he had screamed at me to leave. Even Euros, who has seen everything, is starting to believe there's something more to my presence than just a marriage of convenience. To them, it looks like I have the gift of prophecy. How else could I know exactly what moves to make to save him? Euros admits he was skeptical at first, but the results speak for themselves. I'm the only one who saw the storm coming before it hit. Kalis looks at the papers, his mind clearly racing. The evidence of my foresight is right there in his hands. Returning his stolen land was just the beginning. I didn't want his money or his status. I wanted his life to have meaning again. He watches me with a cautious intensity. It's the look of a man who's been betrayed so often he can no longer recognize a sincere heart. He's trying to find the catch, the hidden agenda. He can't wrap his head around someone wanting nothing but his survival. He points out the obvious. We were total strangers. To him, we've never even crossed paths until now. He's right, of course. In this world, we are nothing to each other. But in my heart, I've known him for a lifetime. He calls it peculiar. I call it a second chance to fix the ending of a story that broke me as much as it broke him. My heart hammers against my ribs. I can't tell him I'm a fan from another world, or that I've cried over his fate 1,000 times. I have to play the part of the devoted wife, even if the devotion I feel is far deeper and more complicated than he could ever imagine. I tell him it's simple. I never had another choice. It was always him. It was always about saving him. If my presence is a burden, if my plans for revenge make him uncomfortable, I'll step away. I'll sign the papers and disappear. He doesn't answer immediately. He just stares out into the distance, his profile as sharp and cold as carved marble. I'm prepared to be the villain in his story if it keeps him alive, even if it means being a stranger forever. Then he speaks. His voice is low, almost a whisper, breaking the suffocating tension in the room. He tells me Helios has already sent a letter. The game is moving faster than I anticipated. He tells me that since I started this, I should be the one to finish it. He won't stand in my way. He's curious to see how this all ends. For the first time, I see a spark of something other than despair in his eyes. A blind eye? That's all the permission I need. If he won't stop me, then Diana and Helios better start praying. I'm going to dismantle their perfect little world piece by piece, and I'm going to do it with a smile on my face. But to face the Crown Prince, I need proof of my standing. I need a letter written in Kyolis's own hand. When he hands it to me, I can barely contain my joy. It's more than just a tool for my plans. It's a piece of him. I take my leave, floating on a cloud of triumph. The first step toward their downfall is officially in motion. Euros comes charging down the hall, looking like he's about to have a heart attack from the excitement. He's worried I took Kalis's coldness to heart, but he has no idea. I'm used to his silence. It's his survival I'm focused on. I tell him to breathe. Everything is fine. In fact, everything is better than fine. It's time to prepare for battle. I'm going to see the Crown Prince, and I'm going to make sure the entire palace knows the Marchioness has arrived. Euros takes the lead, his eyes shining with a newfound loyalty. He's ready to back me to the ends of the earth. He rallies the staff with a thunderous shout. The energy in the estate shifts instantly from mourning to a call to arms. The maids are stunned. The news that I'm going to confront the royal couple spreads like wildfire through the halls. They know Diana will be there. They know what's at stake. And surprisingly, they're all on my side. It's a frenzy of dresses, jewelry, and perfume. They want me to look like a goddess, specifically one that makes Diana look like a peasant. When they're finished, I barely recognize the woman in the mirror. This isn't just a dress, it's armor. The maids are cheering as if I've already won. Their enthusiasm is infectious, fueling my own resolve. I expected hostility from the staff, but they see me as the hero who brought back their master's land and his dignity. They want me to crush the people who abandoned Kailas. They're treating this like I'm going to war, and honestly, they aren't wrong. It's a relief to have them in my corner. In the original story, everyone worshipped Diana, but here, the tide is turning. I need to look the part of the most powerful woman in the room. If I'm going to face the perfect couple, I can't show a single crack. I'm ready. They won't know what hit them. I'm not the weak, nameless fan anymore. I'm the woman who's going to rewrite their destiny. Then I see her, Diana. Even knowing what I know, her beauty is staggering. It's easy to see why everyone fell for her act. For a second, my confidence wavers. She's the protagonist, the golden child of this world. Can I really take her down? I pull myself together and offer a formal greeting. My voice is steady, my head held high as I introduce myself as Marchioness Hestia. Diana watches me, a flicker of confusion crossing her face. She feels the shift in the air, the presence of someone who doesn't worship her. She looks at me as if she's trying to remember a dream. The tension between us is electric, a silent declaration of war. She asks if we've met before. Oh, Diana, you have no idea. We haven't met, but I've been watching you fail Kalis for a very long time. I can still see it clearly. The first time Diana appeared in this world, she was the picture of divine grace, a beacon of hope for those who had nothing left. Dressed in modest, simple clothes, she didn't look like a woman who craved power. She looked like a woman who only wanted to serve. With every gentle word and every soft smile, she mended more than just physical wounds. She made the people believe in something better. That was the power of the female lead. She was different, magnetic, and completely untouchable in her purity. I watched her from the shadows, mesmerized like everyone else. Back then, it felt impossible not to love a soul like hers. We were drawn to her light, never imagining that the same hand reaching out to the poor would eventually grasp for a crown. But look at her now. The saintess has traded her humble robes for silk and jewels, ensconced in a palace as the crown prince's bride. She stares at me with a practiced confusion, acting as if we are strangers. It's a delicate performance, one designed to keep her image untarnished. It's almost laughable. Does she really think a change of scenery can erase the past? I know exactly who she is beneath that shimmering facade. The air in the room is thick with their silent judgment, but I didn't come here to play games of etiquette. I came to settle a debt. I lay the marriage certificate and Kyle's handwritten letter on the table. It's the ultimate proof that I'm not just some interloper. I tell the crown prince that Kyle himself sent these, and that they should be more than enough to satisfy his curiosity. The moment Diana sees the handwriting, her composure cracks. She recognizes the script immediately. It's a ghost from a life she thought she'd left behind. She can't hide the tremor in her voice as she demands to see it. The reality of my marriage is finally starting to sink in. She's in denial. In her mind, Kyle would never make such a monumental decision on a whim. She still thinks she knows his heart better than I do. Even Helios looks troubled. He knows Kyle is a man of honor and logic, not someone to be toyed with easily. But the evidence is undeniable. The seal, the letter, the carriage I arrived in, all of it belongs to the Marquis' estate. The truth is a bitter pill for them to swallow. Kalis, the man they both discarded, has officially chosen someone else. I offer them a polite, empty smile. Let them wonder. Let them stew in their own suspicions. Inside, I'm laughing. I can see the disbelief and the growing sense of unease written all over their faces. It doesn't matter how much they doubt me. I am the Marchioness now, and I will play this role to perfection until I get what I want. Helios tries to regain control of the conversation, his voice hardening. He's looking for any crack in my armor, any reason to label me a threat. He accuses me of abusing power to blackmail the temple. It's rich, coming from a man who lives on the labor of the common people. I simply tilt my head. I didn't use force, I used the truth. If they found the truth intimidating, that's their burden to carry. I ask him a simple question. Is it right for land donated to a saintess to become the private property of a corrupt temple? Diana flinches. She knows I've hit a nerve. Her entire identity is built on her supposed selflessness, but her actions tell a different story. She tries to hide behind theology, claiming that everything donated to the temple belongs only to God. It's a convenient shield for greed. I point out the irony. If her power is a gift from the gods, why is it now only used for the benefit of the royal family? The look in my eyes must be terrifying to her. She doesn't realize that I remember a time before this life, a time when I was the one begging for her help. Before my return, when I was dying and desperate, I crawled to that temple just to see the saintess one last time. I was thrown out like trash. They told me she had no time for a dirty civilian. That was the mercy of the woman the world worships. Once she became the prince's wife, the people no longer mattered. She had achieved her goal, and the sick were left to rot in her shadow. I died in that cold hallway while she feasted in the palace. That is the debt I've come to collect. I look her in the eye and ask if this truly is the will of God, or if it's just her own ambition masquerading as holiness. She stammers, unable to find an answer that doesn't expose her hypocrisy. The saintess is finally speechless. Helios snaps, telling me to watch my words. He can't stand to see his precious bride being dismantled by the truth. I mockingly apologize. It's touching how he rushes to her defense, even when she's clearly in the wrong. I turn the question back to her. Does she want the land back? Does she want to continue profiting off the pain of others? To be honest, the answer doesn't matter. The damage is already done. I've planted the seeds of doubt in their perfect little world. I remind them that Kale donated that land because he loved her. Taking it back isn't an attack, it's a release. Does she want him to be weighed down by the past forever? Or is she just afraid of him moving on? They have nothing to say to that. How could they? To refute me would be to admit they want him to suffer. If they want Kale to find closure, they have to accept that he is reclaiming his life, and that includes reclaiming his heart from her. I hope they understand. I'm simply fulfilling the future they deserve. My revenge is just beginning, and they are already losing. Helios sits there, seething in silence. He can feel the power shifting, and he hates that he can't do anything to stop me. He tries to attack my origins, wondering how someone like me managed to worm my way into Kale's life. He thinks my status is a weakness. I tell him that marriage isn't always about the grand sweeping passion he and Diana share. Sometimes it's about something much more practical. He thinks I'm trying to teach them a lesson. Perhaps I am. A lesson in consequences. He asks why Kale would choose me over all the noble ladies who admired him. It's a question born of arrogance. I decide to give them something to really worry about. There is one detail I forgot to mention. I tell them I possess a special ability, much like the saintess, a power that sets me apart from ordinary women. I claim to have the ability to see the future. It's a bold lie, but in this world, it's a weapon more powerful than any sword. I watch their reactions closely. They want to dismiss it as nonsense, but the conviction in my voice makes them hesitate. Diana looks shaken. Her status as the special one is being threatened, and she can't handle the competition. I offer to prove it. I'll tell them something that will happen very soon, something they can't possibly ignore. Later, back at the estate, Kale asks me what I told them. He's curious and perhaps a little worried about the fire I'm playing with. I told them the grand thief who's been the talk of the empire will be caught in a few days. It's a safe bet since I've already read how this story ends. The crown prince thinks I'm an imposter, but he'll see. Soon enough, they'll all see that I'm the one holding all the cards. Kale looks at me, his expression unreadable. I wonder if he's starting to see me as more than just a convenient partner. I explain my reasoning to him, how I cornered Diana and made her face the reality of the land donation. I can see the lingering sadness in his eyes. He still loves her, doesn't he? Even after everything she's done, the heart doesn't let go easily. He admits that it's strange. He had completely forgotten about that land, but hearing that it's back in his hands is surprisingly comforting. I bite my lip. My goal is to save him, but seeing him still pining for her hurts more than I'm willing to admit. He calls my name softly. It's the first time he's sounded so present, so real. He thanks me. 2 simple words, but they carry more weight than anything I've achieved today. He leans in, his gaze intense and focused entirely on me. He wants to express his gratitude somehow, and suddenly the air between us feels very, very thin. Kale leans in, his presence suddenly overwhelming as he offers a token of gratitude. In this world, proximity is power, and right now, Hestia is losing her breath. Her brain is short-circuiting. Having your favorite character this close isn't just a dream, it's a sensory overload that's threatening to melt her composure. To her, he's not just a man, he's the masterpiece she spent years admiring from behind a screen. Every line of his face feels like a gift she isn't sure she deserves. She stares, trapped between the urge to scream and the need to memorize every detail. Is this real life, or has she finally slipped into a fever dream? When he asks what she wants in return, her mind wanders to places it definitely shouldn't. The otaku in her is having a very scandalous internal debate. Her face is practically on fire. The sheer intensity of her own imagination is enough to make her want to vanish on the spot. Kale looks on, visibly disturbed by the chaotic energy radiating off her. He wanted to be sincere, but he's starting to regret the invitation. He wonders if her silence means she's planning something difficult. Little does he know, she's just trying to remember how to breathe. She finally snaps out of it, shaking her head. She didn't save him for a reward, and she needs to make that clear before he thinks she's just another opportunist. Kale waits, his gaze softening just a fraction. He's prepared to give her anything, yet he has no idea what she's actually plotting. She makes her request. She wants a tutor, not for etiquette or embroidery, but for something far more strategic. He's taken aback. Of all the things she could have asked for, wealth, status, jewelry, she chose an education? But it's the name she drops that really gives him pause. Madame Harmonia, a woman who is anything but a simple teacher. Hestia is firm. She doesn't want anyone else. This isn't about learning, it's about positioning herself in the high-stakes game of the capital. In the original story, Madame Harmonia was the ultimate ally to the heroine, Diana. She was the gatekeeper to the social circles Diana needed to conquer. Hestia remembers the tragedy of the original timeline. The poison, the blood, and the way the nobility was shattered by Diana's ascent. The survivors were forced to change their tune, falling in line behind a woman they didn't truly respect just to keep their heads. But Hestia knows the truth. Fear isn't loyalty. Beneath the smiles and the applause, there is a deep, simmering resentment toward Diana. That resentment is a weapon, and Hestia is the only one who knows how to wield it. If everyone loves Diana, then Hestia will be the one to show them why they shouldn't. But why Madame Harmonia? Why try to recruit Diana's closest confidant? It seems like a suicide mission to anyone else. It's because Harmonia was the one who encouraged Diana's reckless romance with the prince. She was the architect of the very union that destroyed Kael. She taught Diana how to navigate the palace, providing the mental and social armor the commoner-born saintess lacked. While the temple provided the political backing for Diana's rise, they were too rigid to handle the nuances of the court. Madame Harmonia was the true mentor, the emotional pillar that kept Diana from crumbling under the pressure of her new life. As a social butterfly who hears every whisper in the city, there's no way the madam is unaware of the current shift in power. Hestia suspects Harmonia is already moving to shore up support for Diana. She's a fixer, and Diana's reputation is currently in need of a major repair. That's why Hestia has to strike first. She needs to get to the madam before Diana can reclaim her influence. Kael watches her, sensing the gears turning in her head. He can't begin to fathom her motives. She's a whirlwind of contradictions, acting out of a devotion he still doesn't understand. Despite his confusion, he agrees. He'll give her the tutor she wants. Hestia's victory is small, but it's the first step in a much larger revenge. As she turns to leave, Kael stops her. There's something else he needs to say, something that isn't part of any political bargain. He admits that he still doesn't quite understand what she's after, but his gratitude is genuine. He's starting to see her as more than just a strange savior. "Thank you," he says quietly. Those two words hit Hestia harder than any grand gesture ever could. The fangirl inside her finally explodes. He said it. He actually said it. Her heart is doing backflips. The way he looked at her, the way he spoke, it's everything she ever wanted for him. She's practically floating on air. All the stress, the fear, and the hard work of trying to change fate suddenly feels worth it. This is her ultimate reward. She's more determined than ever. She will live for him, fight for him, and ensure that this time, her favorite character gets the happy ending he deserves. In a world of cold titles and calculated moves, I'm playing the most dangerous game of all, the humble victim. To save KL, I need more than a marriage certificate. I need high society's gatekeepers on my side. I weave a story of being a lonely girl, an orphan adopted just to fill a void. It's a calculated performance. The truth is simpler. I bought my way into this life with gold, all to stand by the man society abandoned. Madame Harmonia watches me with growing pity. She sees a naive girl overwhelmed by her new title. I let the vulnerability show. In this room, sincerity is the sharpest weapon I possess. The strategy is working. She's beginning to see me as someone who needs her protection, not just her lessons. I maintain the image of a naive country girl. Humility is the only way to bypass her natural defenses. She seems lost in thought, weighing my words against the rumors she's heard. I hold my breath. If she sees through the act now, my path to saving KL is blocked. Is she actually considering my request? The silence in the room is deafening. She looks conflicted. This is the moment where I either win an ally or lose my footing. I double down on the modesty. I need her to feel like she's the only one who can help me. She reacts with surprise. My supposed lack of social ambition is exactly what she didn't expect. The tension breaks. She's softening, her gaze turning from critical to maternal. Then comes the question I've been waiting for. She's curious about the marriage itself. I keep my expression neutral. The next lie has to be the most convincing one of all. She's leaning in now, fully invested in the drama I'm carefully constructing. The hook is set. Her curiosity is the bridge I needed to cross. Actually, this is perfect. Interest in me means interest in my version of the truth. I claim I've adored the Marquis for years. It's a romance every noblewoman is desperate to believe in. I paint a picture of running to his side the night the crown princess discarded him like trash. I describe the marriage certificate as an act of grace from a man who had nothing left to give. Harmonia is captivated. She sees a tragic love story where there was only desperation. I mention how he gave everything to the saintess and received nothing but betrayal in return. I let a bit of genuine sadness slip through. He was so special to everyone, yet left so alone. I can see her heart breaking for him. I'm almost done winning her over completely. Now for the finishing touch. I need to establish my place as a temporary fixture. She listens intently as I describe myself as a mere placeholder in his heart. I tell her I'll wait for the day he recovers and asks for a divorce. It's the ultimate sacrifice. She's horrified by the idea. Success. No one can hate a woman who offers to step aside for her husband's happiness. She tells me I've already proven my worth. My efforts at the temple were enough to earn her respect. She takes my hands, promising her utmost help. I've secured the most powerful mentor in the capital. She looks at me with pure admiration. My beloved, I'm building a world where you are finally safe. I thank her silently. In this story, being an easy character to manipulate is her greatest gift to me. She immediately gets to work, organizing everything I need to learn to survive the coming social season. The lessons are grueling. Etiquette, trends, and precautions I never encountered in the original novel. It's difficult, but I push through. Every bit of information is a shield for Kyle. Days later, Cloris arrives with news that changes everything. The criminal has been caught. That is reassuring. The shadow over my reputation is finally starting to lift. The village is buzzing with the news. This is the moment I've been waiting for. If the rumors have reached Diana and Helios, they'll have no choice but to set aside their doubts. I imagine their blank faces. I wish I could be there to witness their confusion firsthand. Everything is going smoothly. My duties are becoming second nature, and my allies are growing. I ask about the Marquis, expecting the usual report of his quiet recovery, but the maid hesitates. Something is wrong. The atmosphere in the room shifts instantly. He's meeting with a guest. Kyle isn't in any condition to see anyone yet. If she's stalling this much, it's someone she's afraid to even name. Is it Hyperion? The maid's shock tells me everything I need to know. Of course. Hyperion's presence here can only mean more pain for the man I'm trying to protect. I find Uros outside the door. He's just as worried as I am, his composure cracking. I tell him he has no need for excuses. We both know what's at stake behind these doors. We listen, hoping for a peaceful conversation, but the silence from within is terrifying. Then, the sound of shattering glass cuts through the air. My heart stops. I throw the doors open, screaming his name. I won't let them break him again. I see his fist clenched and mangled, blood dripping onto the shards of a broken window. He stands there, a broken man in a beautiful room, while the guest looks on. Kale, the war inside him is far from over, and I fear I'm losing him to the dark. I knew that if I wanted to protect Kyle, I couldn't just be a bystander. I had to become someone who belonged in his world, even if the weight of high society felt like it was crushing me. My studies were interrupted by Cloris, the lead maid, who arrived with a tray of tea and an expression that suggested something significant had happened. She brought news that was supposed to be a relief. The thieves who had been causing such a stir in the capital were finally caught this morning. It was the breakthrough I'd been waiting for, but looking at the piles of etiquette books and notes, I felt like the homework would never end. My mind immediately went to Diana and Helios. They were probably already piecing things together, their suspicion growing with every move I made. Just the thought of their confused, frustrated faces brought a dark sort of satisfaction. They deserved to be kept in the dark while I secured Kyle's future. But my priority remained the same. I asked Cloris how the Marquis was doing today, hoping for a sign of recovery. Her hesitation was immediate. The air in the room shifted, turning cold as she struggled to find the words. My heart sank. Silence in this house usually meant trouble, and Cloris wasn't the type to fumble without a reason. I pressed her. Kyle wasn't strong enough to entertain guests, yet someone was here, someone important. The way she looked away told me everything. This wasn't just any visitor. It was someone whose name carried a weight she was afraid to speak freely. The guest is called Hyperion, isn't he? I said it calmly, though my blood was starting to boil. Her shocked expression confirmed my worst fears. Hyperion, the alias Crown Prince Helios used when he came out of hiding. He was here, in this house, and he hadn't asked for me. I didn't wait for her to finish. I was out of my seat and running through the hallways before she could even offer an excuse. Why would he come now? Was it really just about the thieves? Or was he here to twist the knife further into Kyle's already broken spirit? If he thought I would just let him waltz in here and cause more damage, he was dead wrong. I wouldn't let him touch a hair on Kyle's head. I reached the study to find Oros trembling outside the door, looking like he'd seen a ghost. He tried to stop me, his voice shaking as he begged me to consider the consequences of interrupting the prince. I could see the terror in his eyes, but I didn't have time to comfort him. I understood the position he was in, but Kale came first, always. For a moment, we both leaned in, listening to the muffled voices behind the heavy wood. They seemed to be talking calmly, but the tension was thick enough to choke on. Then the silence was shattered by the sharp, violent sound of glass exploding. Panic took over. I threw the doors open, screaming Kale's name, my mind racing through every horrific possibility. The sight that met me was worse than I imagined. Fresh blood dripped from a clenched fist, staining the broken glass of the window. There they were. Helios stood tall, looking down at the man he had once called a friend, while Kale stood there, bleeding and broken in the center of the room. My vision blurred with rage. This was the man who had abandoned him, and now he had the audacity to come here and draw blood. The sound of shattering glass still echoes in the room, a violent punctuation to a conversation that should have never happened. Kale's hand is a mess of blood and shards, a physical manifestation of the pain he's been stifling. I can't breathe as I rush to his side. Seeing him like this, so broken and raw, makes my heart feel like it's being wrenched from my chest. I need a doctor, now. Helios stands there, a silent observer to the wreckage he helped create. He looks at Kale with a mix of pity and confusion, as if he can't comprehend the depth of the wound he inflicted. The mere sight of him makes my blood boil. He has no right to be here, no right to look at Kale after everything he's done. I don't care about decorum or his status as the crown prince. In this moment, he is nothing but the man who drove my favorite person to the brink. My voice is a whip, lashing out with a fury I didn't know I possessed. I demand that he leave. He has caused enough damage for one lifetime. Helios flinches, clearly stunned by my outburst. He's used to being revered, not rebuked, but I won't let him hide behind his title anymore. He lets out a frustrated click of his tongue, the mask of the perfect prince slipping for just a second. He knows he's lost this round. With a final, hollow apology, he turns and retreats into the shadows. Good. Let him walk away with his guilt. But Kale is still here, and he's collapsing. The adrenaline is fading, leaving behind nothing but exhaustion and a terrifying emptiness. He looks at his blood-stained hand, his eyes clouded with a question that breaks me. He can't understand why a stranger like me is fighting so hard for him. He asks why I look so pained, why I'm crying for someone who has already given up on himself. Every time he sees me, I'm wearing this expression of desperate devotion. To him, it's a mystery. To me, it's the only truth I have left. He slips into unconsciousness, his body finally giving in to the strain. I hold him tight, promising the silent room that I won't let go. Hours pass in a blur of sterile bandages and hushed whispers. The room is quiet now, the storm having passed, leaving only the wreckage behind. I watch him sleep, his face finally peaceful. It's a fragile peace, one I know I'll have to defend with everything I have. The physician assures me the physical wound isn't deep, but we both know the real damage isn't something a bandage can fix. I wonder what they talked about before I burst in. What poison did Helios pour into his ear this time? Suddenly, his eyes flutter open. He's been awake, listening to my anxious mumbling. I feel a flush of embarrassment, but mostly I'm just relieved. He looks so small in that large bed, his usual sharp edge softened by fatigue. He asks if I'm curious about their conversation. He wants to know if my foresight told me Helios would show up today. I admit that even my knowledge has its limits. A heavy silence falls between us. Kalis stares at his bandaged hand, the memories of the encounter clearly weighing on him. He confesses that he never wanted to see Helios again. The friendship they once shared is now just a bitter reminder of everything he lost. If he had his way, he'd avoid that man for the rest of his life. But life and Helios rarely give him what he wants. He starts to recount the confrontation. Helios had arrived with questions, his suspicion practically radiating off him. Helios had the audacity to ask why Kalis looked so awful, as if the answer wasn't staring him right in the face. He even asked about our honeymoon, trying to play the part of the concerned friend while simultaneously digging for information. Helios couldn't wrap his head around the marriage. He didn't believe Kalis would actually commit to a woman he barely knew. But Kalis shot back, his voice cold. Why should Helios be the only one allowed to move on? Why should Kalis remain frozen in the past? Helios argued that it wasn't like him, that the prudent Kalis he knew would never bring a suspicious woman into his home. Kalis simply asked why he should bother being prudent anymore. What has prudence ever gotten him but misery? Because every time he tried to be the bigger person, every time he acted with restraint, it only led to more heartbreak. He watched the woman he loved choose someone else, and he did it with a smile on his face. The memory of that pain makes him grit his teeth. The restraint he practiced was a slow poison. He finally looked Helios in the eye and told him the truth, the one truth Helios wasn't prepared to hear. He told him that on the day Helios and Diana got married, he tried to end his own life. The shock on Helios's face must have been priceless. He explained that I was the one who interfered, that I used my foresight to find him and stop him before it was too late. He told Helios that our marriage was simply a reward for saving him, a transaction that had nothing to do with the prince. Helios tried to play the victim, asking why Kale didn't say anything, as if his silence was the real betrayal here. He kept repeating that they were friends, a word that has lost all meaning in the face of such profound neglect. Kale's expression is one of pure, exhausted cynicism. He wonders if everything is his fault again, his love, his loss, his desperation. He's tired of carrying the weight of everyone's expectations. He's tired of being the prudent one while his heart is being torn apart. Then Helios made the ultimate mistake. He brought up Diana. He claimed she would be sad to see him like this. He even had the nerve to say she was worried about him, that she stayed up all night thinking about him. The hypocrisy is staggering. Helios stands there with a pitying smile, completely oblivious to the insult he's just delivered. Kale's reaction is immediate and visceral. If she was so worried, why didn't she send a letter? Why is her concern always so distant and performative? He loses it. He screams at Helios to get out, his voice cracking with a pain that has finally boiled over. The prince is gone, but the echoes of his words remain. Kale sits in the quiet room, his fist clenched, still fighting a battle he thought he'd already lost. He looks at me and admits he was arrogant. He thought that if Helios and Diana were happy, he could eventually find peace. He tried to force himself to be okay with being the third wheel in his own life. But the human heart isn't that easily tamed. He was only able to face the truth when he was driven to the very edge, when life became a burden he could no longer carry. He decided that death was the only way out. He was disappointed when he survived, feeling like even his final choice had been taken from him. But then he looks at me with a softness that makes my breath catch. He says that because of me, he's realized something important. He needs to be more honest with himself. He needs to stop living for a past that has already abandoned him. And he says it's all thanks to me, the stranger who wouldn't let him go, the woman who saw his worth when he couldn't see it himself. I'm so overwhelmed, I feel like I'm going to cry. This is everything I wanted for him, to see a reason to keep living.
He calls me his beloved, his meaning, words I never thought I'd hear from his lips, words that heal a part of me I didn't know was broken. I bow my head, my heart overflowing. If I came back to this world for any reason, it was for this moment, to save the man who saved me in another life. Meanwhile, elsewhere, the news of Kale's attempt has finally reached Diana. She looks shaken, but there's a flicker of something else in her eyes. Helios tells her everything, about the wedding day, about the blood, and about the woman who stopped him from dying. Diana can't believe it. She refuses to accept that a stranger could have such a profound impact on Kale. She's suspicious of my foresight. She can't stand the idea that someone else understands Kale better than she does. She's determined to find out my true intentions. She thinks I'm a threat, a manipulator. Little does she know, my only intention is to make sure she never hurts him again.
I made a vow to live for Kale, to be the shield he never had against a world that abandoned him. But I didn't expect to be thrown into the lion's den quite so soon, standing before the elite of society. The Marchioness has arrived. I can feel every eye in the garden tracing my movements, waiting for a stumble. The air is thick with judgment. I never wanted to be the center of this storm, but here I am. I have to maintain my composure. One slip, one wrong word, and everything I've built for him could crumble. Do you understand how I ended up in this trap? We have to look back at the invitation that changed everything. The letter arrived just days ago, a simple piece of paper that felt more like a summons to war. Countess Aranis, a name that carries immense weight in the capital, and an invitation I couldn't ignore. I knew she was hosting a tea party, but I didn't expect her to target the new Marchioness so aggressively. She's a socialite whose influence rivals the most powerful women in the empire, a gatekeeper of reputation. But why is she so interested in me? The curiosity of a predator, no doubt. The problem is her reputation for being loose-lipped. She deals in secrets, and I have far too many. If I make even a tiny mistake, she will turn it into a scandal that will haunt Kale forever. I need to know what she has in mind. In the original story, she was neutral about Diana, which makes her unpredictable now. My etiquette teacher is visibly worried. She knows the stakes of this meeting better than anyone. There's so little information to go on. An influential socialite with a big mouth, hardly a roadmap for survival. How do I target someone who thrives on the very chaos I'm trying to avoid? My teacher looks at me with pity. She thinks I'm walking into my own social execution. Is this a bribe, or is she simply looking for a new victim to entertain her guests? I can't let her see my fear. I have to appear as the perfect, untouchable wife of the Marquis. I'll have to think about her more, analyze every possible angle before I step into that garden. I don't know her likes or dislikes, and my training is still so fresh. I'm vulnerable, but I can't just ignore her. To hide would be to admit defeat before the battle even begins. There is nothing I won't do for Kyle. For his revenge, I will face any countess, any tea party, any trap. If I refuse, the rumors will be worse. They'll say the new Marchioness is a coward, or worse, a commoner out of her depth. My teacher finally snaps. She realizes that if I'm going, I have to go armed with every social weapon she can give me. She vows to do her utmost to help. We have a goal now, not just survival, but dominance. I have to go. It's the only way to protect our standing and move my plans forward. The plan is risky, but it's the only card I have to play in a deck stacked against me. And so the day arrives. The grand estate of the Countess looms before me, beautiful and menacing. The hostess herself greets the table. She is every bit as sharp and calculating as I feared. The atmosphere is falsely polite, a veneer of kindness over a pit of vipers. I realize I'm sitting far too close to her. Every gesture I make is being dissected by the women around us. I have to get it together. I remember the tips my teacher gave me. This is just another performance. The Countess introduces me with a smile that doesn't reach her eyes. The spotlight is officially mine. "Please introduce yourself," she says. The silence that follows is deafening. I remind myself of my title. I am a Marchioness. I hold a rank higher than almost everyone here. These ladies are mostly older. They expect me to be a naive child that they can manipulate. If they look down on me, they'll underestimate me, and that is exactly what I need. I won't try to beat them at their own game of wit. Instead, I'll play a different role entirely. I'll show them the most definite way to be liked by people of their status. I will be polite, shy, and seemingly overwhelmed by their high profiles. I was just nervous to be around such distinguished ladies, I murmur, lowering my gaze perfectly. It works. I can hear the shift in their whispers. They find my supposed modesty charming. They think the rumors from the temple were exaggerated. They see a girl they can take under their wing. This is something I'm confident in. I know how to play the part of the respectful junior. The start is good. The tension begins to bleed out of the air as they offer me tea and smiles. I repeat the story I told my teacher, painting a picture of a woman just trying to do her best for her husband. The ladies are enthralled. My performance is flawless, and it's working here just as well as it did at home. I need them to feel like they are my confidants. I need to know their true opinion of Diana. The whispers turn toward the crown princess. I listen closely, gathering every scrap of information. I wish I could give them a bad image of her directly, but that would be too obvious. I have to be subtle. Then the Countess leans in. Aren't you anxious about Marquis Kale's love affair? There it is, the rude question designed to break my mask and see if I'll crumble into jealousy. I knew someone would ask. It was only a matter of time before they tested my reaction. If I get angry, I'm a child. If I cry, I'm weak. I have to be something else entirely. What happens here today will spread through the entire capital by sunset. It will reach Diana's ears, and I want her to know exactly where I stand. I smile brightly. Why would I be anxious? My husband knows that old relationship is firmly in the past.